Hey, Viking fans, get ready for Johnny Football to do a deep dive into NFL defensive prospects for the 2023 draft. Let's go. Next in 3, 2, 1. Gather around, school brothers and sisters. This is School World, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. I got Johnny Football in the house again because he's a regular host now. How many times have you been on now? Like 20? I don't know. It's been a lot. But hey, he's deep. Yeah, I call him Johnny Diamond too because he's finding diamonds in the rough. At least a couple here and there. But today's defense. Last week was offense. We found some gems on that day. We got some gems today. What's up, man?
Nothing much, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm hyped, man. I got a week to go. We with Purple and Scold Media, we're gonna do a party, draft party. There's 6 of us. We're kicking. Johnny's not part of it yet. He hasn't been tapped, but I'm sure we invite him on if he to come visit. But on the Friday, you and I are going to do day 2 draft. Forget day 3. That's insane. That's for people who get paid to do this. We don't. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm building slides like it's going out of style. I know everybody's hand size in the league now. Because they at least measured their hands and their height and their weight. Yep. So we're good. I got the hand size of everybody in the draft. Let's go.
There you go. Important information.
Is there a particular physical trait that you feel you just kind of you want every player to have? For me,
we were talking about it with receiver last week. We were like, ooh, 8 3/4 inch hands. I don't know. All he's doing is catching, right? Or like offensive tackles when arm length's a big thing with corners as well, but like offensive tackles, arm length is a big, certain teams have a threshold for arm length at certain positions. Like I think that kind of sways a lot of opinions more than tape and so on sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's like for certain positions, arm length is like a real big deal. Like tackle, it really helps receivers, and I think it helps linebackers, honestly. Because you're meeting that point of attack on a run play, getting to their body first is a kind of a big deal. But on offensive guards, I feel like if you just had average arms, you're pretty good because you tend to like hug people if you got too long arms. Right. And and then tight ends too. The best blocking tight ends weren't necessarily the guys with the longest arms, and I think you got a player in this draft that's got some, or in this today's show that's got like almost 35-inch arms, which is insane. Yep. Oh, and it's like I was talking about Vidarian Lowe because he had inch longer arms than Christian Darrisaw. I'm like, this guy's got like long ass arms. He's gonna be like the perfect swing tackle for us. We never saw him play. I don't know.
I liked him coming out a lot too. I spent a lot of time like researching him after the draft because I thought the same thing. I was like, okay, here's a guy who can kind of take over for the Brandles, the Udos eventually. And Udo was actually fine.
I'm totally on Udo now, and I thought he was an important free agent coming in this offseason. Yeah. That was a big deal getting him back. Hey, if you're watching right now, there's a few in here. Give us, tap in. Tell us who's listening, man. Make sure you hit like. We appreciate it, man. Tell us throughout this is a listener-driven show, so you tell us who you like, man. We'll comment. Well, Johnny will comment, and I probably won't know who the hell they are. Yeah. I pick and choose. If I hear the name, I go look it up. I haven't deep dive into really anything other than like maybe 30 players so far. So I'll recognize the name. Like right now, I am looking at video of your first guy. And let's put that guy up here. Yeah, here we go. Brian Branch out of
Yes.
Alabama, cornerback.
Yes.
Tell us about
Yeah,
this
so
guy.
similar to last week, there are going to be a few on here that are maybe in kind of the pipe dream tier that really might have for certain teams might be pretty high up their boards. But they're also guys who I've seen in plenty of mock drafts, plenty of expert mock drafts, plenty of simulations I've done by myself, fall to 23 and even past it in certain cases. And Brian Branch is a guy who I think might actually be worth taking at 23 because we've talked about, a trade down makes a lot of sense. We should try and get more picks, so on and so forth. But Branch is a guy who I think would make an immediate impact on the defense, and fill an immediate need for us. He's got his height and weight up there. He's listed as a safety, nominally a safety, but he played slot corner for
Yeah, I'm
Alabama
looking at that right
for
now.
most of his career.
I was wondering, just because he runs a 4.58, right?
Yep.
Well, safeties run 4.58s, right?
Mhm.
And I'm looking here, and they got him playing the slot like
Yep.
the whole time here.
Yep.
So it's like
74% of the time in 2022. About
so
three-quarters of
you'd
the
almost
time.
be a fit for us, even though Murphy was 50-50, like this guy would be, that potentially that slot corner and keep Murphy on the outside. So that
Yes.
would make sense for us.
Yeah, and we've seen Murphy succeed on the boundary in the NFL. And yeah, you look at the 4.58 speed, that's not really boundary corner speed. But what makes Brian Branch such an attractive fit in the slot is his tackling ability and his
And
ability to play the run from the inside.
and that's what they're showcasing in this video I'm watching as you're talking. It's
Yeah.
pretty impressive. His, I use the word reckless abandon. That's what my
Yes.
football coach told me to play with
Yeah.
in high school, and I tried my best, but this guy looks like he does. And that's what I liked about Andrew Booth Jr. too, right?
Yeah.
Because he just flung his body at people. This guy looks a little more controlled.
Yeah. I mean,
He
he's only
breaks
missed.
down, got good technique.
Yeah, and for as much as he's around the football, he missed 4 tackles over the course of his entire college career.
I
Um,
missed 4 in game, and
yeah.
I know him. But hey, McAndrews, what's up, man? Evening. Let's go. Let's go. It's not McAndrews. It's the McAndrews. Stand corrected, man. Make sure you know that.
Yeah.
But, so you're saying that this guy can slide past even 23? Most likely, it's might be the athletic traits. Although, I mean, 34.5 is pretty good. It's average or a little above
Mhm.
average, probably. Ten and
Mhm.
a half is actually kind of a good number. It shows explosive ability.
Yeah.
Um, the 40 time, anybody could have a bad day, I guess, but um, I seen him doing trail technique looking fine in some of the highlight videos.
Yeah.
So, and he played for a good team, coached well. I can see where this guy goes. And any closing statements on this dude?
Yeah, so that I mean, yeah, the athletic, um, measurements don't jump off the page, but this is one of those guys where it's just like he's a football player, you know? He he doesn't miss
A
tackles.
fucking football player.
He
Raw.
has great instincts. And specifically for the Vikes, like I said, I think he fills an immediate need, um, and does so really well. Um, especially the most important thing is being able to run fit in the box, play in that slot. That's an area that Byron Murphy, if he's in the slot, if that's where he's moving to, that's something you might feel a little bit uneasy about. But Brian Branch, if that's where he's at, he's really an asset to the run defense too. If they try to get us into nickel in order to run the ball, he's a guy who can really move downhill. He can really contain and just flies to the football. So I think when it comes to just the value he sits at on a lot of boards, 17th on the latest consensus board I looked at.
Oh, really? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. But, it could go a lot of different ways. There might be a run of offensive tackles. There could be a run of receivers before we get up to pick. And at 23, again, I probably still like trading back, but he's a guy who might give you some pause because I think he's just extremely NFL ready, and would fit the system really well and the needs, I suppose.
Yeah, I saw the instincts, and I saw discipline in his game. There
Yes.
was a guy faking a screen, and he held with it, and then the quarterback scrambled, and he went after the quarterback. And when the quarterback looked like he committed, so there was a lot of
Yeah.
discipline, I think, in his game. I think we
Timing's
trade
great.
back,
Instincts are
Kofi,
great.
but players to consider are Nick Herberg, Keenan Benton, Drew Sanders, Julius Brent, Riley, Moss, Overshawn, Tomlinson. So a couple of names are on this list we got. So yeah, stay
Yeah,
tuned,
stay
man.
tuned, Kofi.
Yeah, stay tuned. Hey, there's the chicken soup for the soul. Mary Fisk in the house. Goal 1 week. Yes, 1 week from today. Hey,
Almost
and
there.
did you guys know it's my birthday today, April 20th? The thing that the draft is always like a week after my birthday. So I celebrate the whole entire month because it's my birthday and it's draft month. April is a great time of year. March and April, spring training for baseball. April, draft. It's my favorite time of year.
Yeah, spam
Uh,
happy birthday in the chat.
uh, yeah, do that. Wish me some happy birthdays, man.
Yeah.
Look, people are creative. Like I got a card today about Florida Man because I live in Florida.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
good.
they did that at work. I introduced all the British people at work. This is funny. I introduced all the British people at work to put in their birthday and then Florida Man and see what would come up. Mine was not safe for work, but everybody, all the British people that I work with, started sharing it. So I thought it was funny that I introduced Great Britain to Florida Man.
Yeah, that's a fun
But
exercise.
let's talk to this next guy. So I'm watching a little film on him. That's the one guy I got to cram while we're waiting to start the show.
Mhm.
I like him. I'm looking at him, and he looks like the real deal here. You tell me what you think.
Yeah, so I mean, Mozzie Smith is, to me, the most pro ready true nose tackle in this class. And I think that's something that, especially when we're in our odd fronts, is going to be a huge asset to this run defense. Losing a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson, and he's got some juice to push the pocket as well. Not a real refined pass rusher. Definitely needs to be coached up there. But one thing about Mozzie Smith is you are not getting any push on Mozzie Smith without a double team. I mean, if he's one up, head up on a guard, if he's at the zero tech over the center, and he gets a one-on-one block, he's stacking that block, and it's almost like he's not even trying. He can peek and shed and get to the gap that the run's coming to with ease. I mean, he just doesn't. He looks like a Mack truck out there, and when it's a run play, he throws the parking brake on, and you're not getting any push. It gives, and it makes me think about having a guy like Brian Asamoah behind him. Some other linebackers we'll talk about, but particularly Asamoah, who isn't a great block shedder. He kind of avoids blocks. It gives a guy like him an opportunity to really get a runway and get downhill when you have a guy in front of him like Mozzie who can really just eat blocks, not give up any ground at the point of attack, and really just be that true nose tackle, stopping the run, getting some push if you get an early down pass play. He's really got, all of the strength you ask for from the position. Look at his almost 34-inch arms. He's able to keep centers and guards at bay. And when I mention true nose tackle, I just mean that he's not very likely to kick out to, 4 or 5 tech. You'll see him at 3 technique here and there. But he's usually operating from guard to guard. And, you'll get guys like Dean Lowry and Harrison Phillips outside of him and have him really operate over the center in a shade nose or a zero technique more often than not.
So, I didn't see a 40 time and I didn't have any vertical or anything like that, but 33 reps is pretty damn good. His arm length is fine. His hand size is fine. His weight is impressive. 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
That's fine for a D tackle, I think.
Yep.
So you're right about him being the nose tackle. He's got the weight for it. I don't think he can be. I think he's not immovable. He's not super elite like holy crap like Aaron Donald,
Mm-hmm.
but he's up there, man.
Oh yeah.
He and I wish I looked at him sooner. I was looking for and we'll talk about Benton later. But this guy's way more athletic than Benton. And I think he's more of a force. So
He's kind of
even though
twitched up. Yeah.
it's 40 times, so what? This guy takes on the block, mirrors well, sheds the block, makes the tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking this is a guy I'm almost willing to stick and pick at 23. If he's there.
That's his range, honestly. He might be in that tier. He might be a guy you can get early second. But another thing that flashed across my mind watching some Ozzie Smith tape is the way that he, when there's a wide zone run, the way he's able to track that horizontally reminds me of like Linval Joseph. The way Linval used to make tackles outside the numbers, running along the line of scrimmage and getting to the back before he's able to cut up field. Like he's got that type of tracking and he's got that type of get up to get out there. And he reads run plays really well. Like I said, there's plenty of plenty of things to work on and when it comes to his pass rush repertoire. But I think he'll really benefit from NFL coaching in that department. And on a base level, he's an excellent run defender.
So let's take this brief moment
to
talk about quarterbacks in the draft.
Yeah.
Mike Castellano is a guy I've done shows with. I actually did one with him on Tuesday. He's our Canadian expert. So when we call in anything to do with Canada, we bring the Canadian to do it. But hey, he's going to be a regular on the Minnesota Sports Talk, I'm pretty sure. Love this guy. He used to talk shit at me in the chat, but when he came on the show, I ended up liking him. And he runs Twitter a lot. Those Twitter talk things they do. I don't know. What, Spaces? He's the king of the Spaces.
There you go.
Your thoughts on land speculation? Go ahead, man. For the 18th time, your thoughts on land speculation?
Yeah. So there's a few different ways that this gets approached as a hypothetical. There's with the caveat of Kirk Cousins being moved as part of that slew of moves, or there's bringing Lance on to sort of supplement what we've been talking about with drafting a rookie and sitting behind Kirk for the 1 year, letting that contract expire, and taking over thereafter. I prefer the latter if we're going to make that move, and it comes down to draft compensation from there. I have no interest in moving 23 for Lance. If it's a next year second, or something like that. A next year second and change, a next year second and
I made this point.
Dalvin Cook. You know what I mean?
I made this point. Even if like this year first, I don't want it. We need to do something this year. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, even 87. I need 87.
Right. I'm like this year, but if it was to come down to where Kwesi said, "Hey, you can have next year's first round pick," I would not be. It would not be a career-ending move for him. If
I could maybe even go that far.
It would not be a career-ending move for him, but trading 3 first-round picks to move up in this year's draft to get a quarterback could be a career-ending move for him. And last night's show, we talked about if where would Lance fall in this year's draft? Like healthy, like if he was healthy.
I mean, he's probably in the Hooker tier.
You kind of said 4. Only because Hooker's injured.
Yeah. I mean, I think the top 4 guys would probably still be ahead of him. I think I'd lean Levis by a hair as well, just because the playing time at the collegiate level, especially in the SEC, I think outweighs the physical tools that you see from Trey Lance, or the discrepancy between the physical tools of Levis and Lance. And then, of course, I think Young, Stroud, and Richardson are far and away better prospects. And I mean, even if you add in his current NFL experience, I think it's under 500 game passes since 2019, or since he was in high school, essentially. So it's not there's no. It's tough to invest much at all, just because it is still a huge flyer. He hasn't had a full season under his belt. He missed the year prior to when he came out of the draft at NDSU. I mean, listen, I'm all about bringing a Minnesota native back to play quarterback, but it's a huge risk depending on the investment level.
So back when he was in the draft, if we would have drafted him and didn't move up, didn't spend picks like San Fran did, we probably would have been happy with it, right? We probably would have been, hey, he shows a lot of talent. Sure, he's only played a few games, but he threw 28 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and ran for like a dozen more, and then had like 1,000 yards. Pretty amazing season. I made the point last night that, hey, these other, I said his comp was probably Hendon Hooker, but Hendon Hooker did it in the SEC.
Right.
And I was saying, and then you go Richardson, and I'm like, Anthony Richardson, I'm like, but he did that in the SEC too, and he's a freak athlete. I don't think Lance is as freak athlete as I think he's more of a Hendon Hooker, maybe a little more athletic, but I think just more Hendon Hooker's got more game. He's played more games and stuff like that. I'm starting to warm up to the fact that if we traded back and got Hendon Hooker somewhere in the second or third round, or moved around to get him there, but I don't want to take any quarterback my first pick this year. But if we traded back and were able to move up into the second somehow, I don't know, use next year's picks to do that, I think honestly, I think Hendon Hooker is a really good quarterback. I know there's some people that don't think that. That they're not excited. He's not the sexy pick. Oh, he won't play second round. You only have 40 years, and we don't have that 5th year. All that's not important to me. Getting the right guy is in an affordable way, because we do not have the picks. But if we get a Hendon Hooker, I feel like that's not a bad pick in the second day. It's not a bad pick. Yeah. Everybody was wanting us to take what's his name from. God, what's the quarterback everybody thought was going to go number 1 and ended up in the 4th round or 3rd round?
Last year?
Yeah. What's his name?
Oh, the
not Rice, not from Rice. What, another white and blue team.
Liberty, Malik
Yeah,
Willis.
Liberty. What's his
Yeah, yeah,
name?
yeah.
Yeah,
Malik
everyone
Willis.
take him, right? Malik Willis.
Mhm.
Don't pass on Malik Willis. Don't pass on him. Yeah, great guy, great leader. He gave free clothes to the homeless dude out in front of the NFL Combine. That big press on that. Great, good kid. He did it. He did it at Liberty, and that's what I felt like about Lance. Where I feel like I'm right about Malik Willis, and I'm still kind of maybe Lance's because he has the height, he has the arm. He NDSU, but hey, he is flawless there. What would it have done? What would he have done if he played at a Power 5? That's out there for me. I don't know,
Yeah.
and he's not 6 foot and stubby and like Malik Willis. So I don't know. I'm talking on my ass on that. Let's talk defense some more.
Oh, that's
If
right.
you guys want to ask more questions about quarterbacks, please do. We'll stop in a brief intermission and talk about them.
Mhm.
But let's get onto this guy. I did a video on him. Joey Porter Jr. His dad was awesome. Will he be awesome? You tell me. You tell me, Johnny Football.
Yeah, so different, much different defensive back in terms of fit and in terms of how he was used in college. So this is a guy who, if we were to take him, you're sort of saying, all right, Murphy's going to be our slot corner when we go to nickel. Porter was boundary exclusive in college. You've got the arm length there, 34-inch arms at about 6'2.5". Like that's the type of
I think
length.
I got that right. Let me double check. I think
It
that's
is
right.
34-inch. Yeah,
It's
that's
hard
the
to
type of
believe,
height.
right?
It's nuts. I mean, if you look at him, I mean, there's still shots of his just arms swinging like when he's standing up straight, and they're down to his knees. It's that type of
Lines off
length,
a tree, right?
100%. That type of
Yeah,
length will
34
really
hand
give
size
wide
10.
receivers fits.
I
Yeah,
just confirmed it.
yeah. I mean,
Internet
those
doesn't
are
lie.
awesome press tools. The bump and run type of cover zero man coverage we'll see from the boundary corners when Brian Flores really mixes it up. He's got all the tools for that.
So where I want to step in and where I saw his deficiencies kind of lead to the fact that he didn't run the 3-cone or the 20-yard shuttle. Because I
That's
felt
right, yeah.
I felt that when watching his video, he'd like to hug a lot, like, and he was early, and they didn't
Mhm,
call it. Like
mhm.
his highlight taste was him hugging people, and I'm like,
Yes.
or hitting people early or grabbing them and stuff like that. And I thought he was maybe lazy in his technique, or maybe it's just short area quickness, and that's why he didn't do the 3-cone drill because all his
Mhm.
other numbers are amazing. Even his
Right.
bench 17 is not bad for a cornerback with long
Mhm.
arms. Benching with long arms is harder than benching with short arms. So
Exactly.
17 for a guy with 34-inch arms is pretty awesome, and you're only weigh 193 pounds. That's pretty impressive. So, yeah, I mean, he's got all the athletic traits. Can we coach it? Can he get coached up in 1 year where he starts and moves Murphy to the inside? This guy's not. I don't think this guy's playing slot.
No, no, and he didn't really at all in college, and you don't. I mean, he's sort of a straight line athlete. Um,
Hey,
like
Kofi agrees with me. Kofi agrees
yeah.
with me. I I mean, I extensively watched 3 minutes of highlight tapes to get that impression, but they're the highlight tapes. I'm seeing the bad stuff on highlight tapes, so there's
Mhm.
got to be something there.
Yeah. So it is sort of the opposite end of that dichotomy between, a guy like Brian Branch who is just a ball player. His athletics don't jump off the page, but he has great timing, great instinct, great technique. Joey Porter's kind of the other end of that spectrum where he's got everything you could want from an athletic standpoint when you talk about a boundary corner, from a frame standpoint, but does need some refinement in the areas of his technique. So another kind of thing where he may give you pause at 23, if he's there. But I mean, if you trade back to late first, 29, something like that, and he's there, I think that's a great pick. Sort of in that second tier of cornerbacks behind like the Witherspoon and the Gonzalez of the class, probably for most people. But I probably, as far as day one, I think I like this next guy better at cornerback, and that's
Bingo.
Deontay Banks. I think you
We got
have
we
I
got
think you might
mocked to
have
him.
Drew I think you might have Drew Sanders's height and weight
Oh,
for
yeah,
Banks.
probably. Actually, yeah. Forget the height and weight here.
Forget the height and weight.
Yeah,
He's 6 foot, about
that's
200.
Drew Sanders' weight. I got it right here. I'm sure.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
that's all good. I think that's exactly
Yeah, I hope
what
I didn't do
Sanders
it
is.
on another one.
I think the other stuff's right though. He did run a 4.35.
But he's 6 foot.
Six foot.
And he's not small.
No,
So
197. I think he was listed at. So
yeah, I think
we'll
so.
call it 6 foot,
I got
200.
it here. He is
Um,
uh he's 6 foot, 197, 9 and three
yeah.
eighths, three hand size, 31 and 3/8 arm length. But do I got the speed right? Four,
Yes.
yeah,
4.35 in
4.35,
the 40.
4.35 in the 40. But by the way, I made these slides in about 50 minutes. So
Yeah.
if you guys are judging me, I'll judge you back.
Yeah, that's the first thing Kofi thought. Oh, is he
Is he
really
really
6'4"?
6'4"? No, he's not
Yeah.
6'4", Kofi. Sorry. I will
No.
fix that for the draft, hopefully.
But
Actually, yeah.
so
So
better speed than Porter. Smaller frame, but this is a guy to me who has much more refinement in his press technique.
that's exactly
Um,
what I was going to talk about. He's
mhm,
refined. He
yes.
doesn't grab. He mirrors people like he's a shadow.
Mhm.
He's got it. I think he's got it. And if I would not cry if we picked him at 23.
No.
I want to trade down. I want to get more picks, but I would be hard pressed to let this guy go.
Yep. And I think he and Brian Branch at 23, yes, Brian Flores type guy, 100%. Because I see the immediate impact with a guy like this. Um, he is an animal in press. Um, he shades really well. He doesn't allow um, that space to close in. If he starts a few yards off, he'll leave that gap until he needs to break. He doesn't let you eat that cushion up um, like we see Jalen Hyatt do to corners when we turn on his tape. Um, he's very reactionary, and he's not as handsy, I should say. He's more calculated with his jabs. He's more calculated with when he puts his hands up. He does a great job getting his head around. And yeah, I mean, I think too, specifically in this system, this is a guy you could count on day one to hold up for 2.5, 3 seconds in a press man encounter when you're sending 6, 7 in one of these crazy blitzes that I'm sure we'll see dialed up by Brian Flores. He's the type of guy you want out there. He has a lot of similar traits to Byron Murphy in that regard, who does an excellent job shadowing the first couple of steps by a receiver out of the release. Um, and I think it's if you got those two guys on the outside, I think you feel pretty good about being able to get to the quarterback in time. Um, but he also has the long speed, 4.35. Murphy's a little bit slower, um, but off the ball he's fantastic. So you worry about him holding up in man late into the pattern if we don't get to the quarterback there. But I would not be angry about Banks at 23. I might wince a little bit with Porter at 23. I might wince a little bit with Mozzie at 23.
I just think he's more of a
Um,
sure bet. Like the athletic
yeah,
traits are off the chart with those other guys, but I'm like, this guy's fast
mhm,
and he's refined. I'm like, holy
yes,
shit, this is a
mhm,
cornerback we I think I list him number 3 net last year.
yeah.
Um,
I think so
right?
too. There's a chance the ceiling isn't as high as Porter just because he has that crazy length that if if he gets there technique wise, if he gets there just from a processing point of view in zone, and Porter might be better in like a cover 3 type of scheme where he's got the deep boundary and he's off ball and he's got zone eyes, because he is very grabby when he gets into press. I think he's just used to the. I mean, kind of like we talked about with Oli Udo at guard. He has a hard time not hugging just because the quarters are so close. I think it's a little bit of the similar thing with Joey Porter. He's got such long arms and such a wiry frame, that receivers can kind of get into his pads and all of a sudden he's hugging. But Deonte Banks, like I mentioned, times his jabs really well, in press and mirrors really well. Michael, I think it is. Kwesi loves trading. I know that sounds like a.
Well, if
I
you
mean, it
didn't
sounds
pick,
simpler than
like there
than it
wasn't a
is.
single
But,
pick where we stayed at last year. There wasn't
right,
a
he
single
loves it.
pick.
He loves
And
getting on
even
the
more
phone.
so this year because we only have 5 is what I'm thinking. And if
Yeah.
there's guys like, it would really be hard for me to pass on Maisie, right? Really hard for me to pass on this guy, and really hard for me to pass on the next guy, which is,
Oh, this
let's
is a
see,
Dave fave.
this is a favorite of mine. But honestly, Deontay Banks is kind of like my child now. But Drew Sanders was, I think, created in heaven in the linebacker section of like perfect looking linebackers.
Mhm.
I just don't see it. And we didn't do a 40 vertical or bench, or a bench broad jump. But he is long, he's fast, he can come off the edge, he can play off the ball. I think he's so long in pass coverage. You know what I'm saying? Like he had 32 and an eighth inch arms, but he looks super long when he's playing.
Yep. Yep.
So everything about him is like average, right? But he plays like he's amazing. And just
Yeah.
having a 6'4" guy that you got to throw over is it just intrigues the hell out of me. And then he can blitz, and he was misused at the previous college. He came from where? He went to
He
Arkansas
was
late.
he was at Bama, and he
Is
played
it
exclusively on the edge at Bama.
right? And so they made him off ball, and now then he's amazing. So
Mhm.
this guy he's a smaller Brian Urlacher if Brian Urlacher was to play in this era, because you want these wiry linebackers now that can
Mhm.
run with tight ends and receivers. And he reminds me of Brian Urlacher, but not as bad. Not attitude wise, the length. He reminds me that obviously Urlacher was a bigger guy, but Urlacher could pass defend too. He was really good at it
He
because
was
he
the
was so
crux
it
of
was so big.
that Lovie Smith Tampa too. I mean, he up
Right.
the deep
Yeah,
middle, he was awesome.
he was dropping back and you couldn't throw it
Mhm.
over him, and this is
Mhm.
why Urlacher reminds me so much of him. But again, he's not as size wise. He's not the same. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you tell me. You tell me. I already did my love affair with this guy.
Yeah.
You can.
No, I knew this one was one we'd have a good conversation about, because I remember you doing a whole video on Drew Sanders, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But he's one of those guys. Like, this is the type of guy that along the Brian Flores defensive front is going to be an awesome chess piece. He does have some juice off the edge. Obviously has plenty of reps off the edge. 270 snaps off the edge at Alabama. Um, this year he was 85%. He lined up off the ball. Still lined up on the edge. A little bit at Arkansas. But like you mentioned, he is an excellent pass rusher off the blitz, from a 2-point stance. You know, it's similarly to how Zadarius Smith is used when he's at his best. He can roll in and hang over the B gap and blitz from there. He can, but unlike Zadarius, when he's aligned over the B gap, he can drop into coverage and be fine. Um, he can drop into the hook zones. He does have good length. He has pretty good instincts back there. But I think he's a guy who Brian Flores would just love to move around the defensive front, and attack from multiple different spots. And I think that's one of the most important things for the front he's going to be trying to run is versatility, especially on late downs. And I think Drew Sanders brings that in absolute spades. Whether he's dropping into the flat off the edge, rushing off the edge, one-on-one with the tackle, whether he's, blitzing the A or B gap, whether he's, dropping into a mid zone, like he can really do everything in the box. So for that reason, he'll be very easy to disguise with, however he wants to be
Breaking
aligned.
news: Doug Quirin reports. Are we gonna? Oh, I thought you said we are gonna trade down.
Oh,
So yeah, we were just talking about that. Yeah, we think it is because Kwesi traded all our picks last year. We figured this year too, and even more so because of the 5 picks we have.
yeah, he
Oh
loves
yeah,
the market.
Sanders, watch him play amazing. Mary Fisk likes her some Drew Sanders, so I do too. I'm
Cosign.
in love with them. I do. I'm
All right,
marrying
we're
him.
all in. We're all in on Drew Sanders.
I'm
He
moving
might
to
be able to.
Utah. I'm moving to Utah. Me, my wife, and Sanders, we're all gonna hook up and have children together. This is a guy I want producing linebackers the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Like 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 a yeah, I'll change the subject. But Drew Sanders, man, he's awesome.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
here's a
all
guy.
in.
I just
Another guy.
accidentally hit the keyboard. There's a change.
Big Ten, baby.
Jack Campbell sounds like a linebacker
Yeah, he
and
does. He sounds
plays like a linebacker. You
sounds like a
talk to him, and
Steelers
I'll give you my
linebacker.
thoughts.
Sounds like a Steelers linebacker from the 70s.
I know, right? And they were
Jack
in the same
Campbell.
colors too. He looks like he's a Steeler.
Yeah, the steel curtain. He's awesome. His RAS score is a 9.98. I mean, he has shades of a like Tremaine Edmonds coming out, with the frame he provides. Really, really heady linebacker, plays a lot of Mike. Where like this is a kind of guy who could really fill in long term for the role we're going to see with Jordan Hicks this year. Could be a guy who's used much like Flores used Dante Hightower in New England, as that sort of that Mike who can blitz, who has great length over the middle to at least get in the way of those digs and those overs and those crossers. 4.65 is pretty good speed for a guy his size, but it's not blazing. But he makes up for that with his length and his reaction time. And
Is he that
as
tall? Do I got that right?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
he's 6'5", 250. I mean, yeah, like I mentioned, it's that Tremaine Edmonds frame. So over the
Because
deep
he's
middle,
big. He
he's
looks
huge.
big. He looks muscular. He looks like he wants to eat you.
He's huge. For that reason, he's a very capable blitzer as well. And like a guy like him, like I mentioned, could sort of one for one fill that Jordan Hicks role. Drew Sanders, I feel like, is more of a Sam linebacker, especially when we didn't be in like an odd front, 5-man kind of front. I think he probably would operate the best there, and then obviously Flores moves guys around too when it's a for sure passing down. But I think Jack Campbell could be a really good 3-down Mike linebacker, who, if you're looking for somebody to pair with Asamoah in the nickel and you go to 2 linebackers, Asamoah, obviously a good straight line blitzer. He can move sideline to sideline with his speed, and Jack Campbell, I think, can do a lot more damage as well than we saw from Hicks and the late Kendricks, over the middle in passing situations. And he's a really strong run defender as well. He's a sure tackler. And he's the frame and the athleticism, I think, is ideal for today's NFL. He's a bigger linebacker than we usually see, in a lot of cases, but there's a lot of value to that still at the second level. And I'm a huge Jack Campbell fan. I think we could see him go pretty early to a team like Buffalo. or early second as well. Just because there might be a team that's really looking for a guy who can, cover the deep middle in a Tampa 2, who can sink and sink as that second linebacker out of the nickel. Um, I think there's a lot he can do on the football field, and there's a ton of value to that. I think he's somebody you could get if we trade down and get a second round pick. Might be somebody we could get there. On the consensus board, he was at 45 on the big composite consensus board. So
Where was Sanders?
midday 54 was Drew Sanders.
Really?
Yep.
You know where NFL.com has Drew Sanders?
Where's that?
As ranked at linebacker, number one linebacker.
Really?
Yeah, they got so if you go to their draft tracker and they rate players, like they have some scale, and you go to draft tracker, you go to prospects, you go to linebacker, and this is the number one linebacker, Drew Sanders, and the other guy I really like, Trenton Simpson, number 2. And it's honestly, it's not even close according to the ranking.
Interesting.
Their grade is 6.5 grade. Trenton Simpson's number 2 at 6.24, and then a bunch of people.
Mm.
So and Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell, they got 3rd.
Okay, I think it was PFF had Simpson as low as like 87 or something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's all over the place. They don't like
football.
He's all over the place.
PFF don't like football.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Yeah, I did a video on one of the first videos I did was on Trenton Simpson, and then I was looking for other linebackers, and that's when I was Sanders. Yeah, I agree. This is a duplication of Hicks, and Sanders would make more sense for us now. I don't mind doubling up on strengths, but at that position, I'd rather fill the need first. And I don't know. I'm just so in love with Sanders. I can't get over it.
He's much more versatile. Sanders.
But I like a Jack Campbell. I like him. Yeah, but they both close ground really fast. Sanders, I don't think is as sure a tackler as Campbell, but he does other things that Campbell I don't think will. Campbell did not look 6'5" in the film I'm looking at. It's just amazing he's 6'5".
Yeah, big boy.
Here's the next guy. This guy is an edge, right? He's not a D end. Even though I seen video of him playing 3-4 defensive end. So that's weird.
His tape
out of necessity at Iowa State.
His tape's a bit of a shit show. He was misused pretty consistently.
Big selling point here, guys. His tape's a shit show. I'm going to list him as a top prospect for Vikings to look at.
It's a shit show because you're watching it. It's a shit show because you're watching it, and you're like, okay, why is your best pass rusher lined up at 3 tech? On a 3rd down. Like I actually pulled his snap count. So only about 56% of the time was he lined up at a true edge alignment, a 6 technique and wider outside the tackle, and outside the tight end when they had one lined up. More often than he definitely should have been. Like 30% of the time he was inside the tackle or right over the tackle at a 4-eye 5 tech, and another 10% of the time he was actually over the guard. At this size, which,
he's got a good bend.
Right. And
he's got a really good bend.
It wasn't often enough that he was able to showcase that. So I think people are kind of coming around to that where, once he gets to the NFL, especially sub 250, pushing 35-inch arms, he's going to be a true edge.
He is. He's definitely an outside linebacker in a 3-4.
Yeah, and this, there might be a plan to move on from Za'Darius. I still think Hunter gets re-signed, but either way, even if he's coming in as edge 3, and giving Patrick Jones, some competition. I think he has a really high ceiling as a pass rusher.
Yeah, he played defensive end out of necessity for this team.
Yes, yeah, I
He's
think he was just their best player wherever he would have lined up on the defensive side at a certain point.
Yeah, he's beating tackles like they're standing still. He's got
Yes,
he's
yeah,
got swim moves. He's got a rip move. He gets underneath him. He's fast.
hmm
He didn't run a 40, but the 11 I imagine was pretty good. The vert and 11 foot. Although I made it inches, 11-inch broad
yeah,
jump.
11-inch broad, yeah.
Yeah, because if it was 10.5, I had the inches there, and this one was 11, so I erased it. He has
Mhm.
so folks, he's got a bigger than 11-inch broad jump, so
Yeah.
11
And
feet even.
with that length, he's able to engage the tackle early, and allow himself to really bend around the edge, get one of those big paws inside the shoulder pads, and that length really helps him on the edge. And then I'd be curious to see his 40 time. He's really quick. Um,
I think it's probably
so
pretty good.
I think it's probably pretty good. But yeah, he's a guy I like that we could see pretty. And it's another guy who you've seen kind of all over the place on certain boards. He was at 25 on, I think it was PFF's big board. He was more in like the late 40s on one of the consensus boards I saw. He could be a guy that sneaks into the late first. So when it comes
I
to
don't see
targeting
him as
me,
a
like
big drop off from Trenton Simpson. Just
no,
looking at this, it's just he
I
played
would,
defensive end and not
yeah,
linebacker,
yeah. So I think it
playing in the
depends
wrong
on
spot.
right. I think it depends on what teams value in that department. So um, I could I could I could see him being if we were to trade back, I could see him being a pick in the early second.
Just look
Um,
at these arms.
right,
His arms
right.
is,
I mean,
which is weird
he's
because
a
his hands are
true
like
edge.
pretty average, but his arms are like 34.78. That's insane.
Yeah, and there really might be a plan to move on from Za'Darius. So if that's the case, all of a sudden, edge two is a pretty significant need and is going to provide a lot of value on this defense. So
Yeah,
um,
I wouldn't think we'd do too bad if we got him. And with the fact that he played out of position, people aren't going to have the tape that they want on him. This may be a guy that
right.
we might sneak with like our second pick in the draft kind of thing.
hmm
But
Yeah,
I
sample
still
size becomes a bit of an issue.
now there has been a trend here of you really going after some athletes in this. All these guys are athletes, and then we got this guy, uh, Keanu Benton. His athletic traits are not off the charts,
hmm
but and I don't know 309. I thought he looks bigger than that, but 6'4", 309, arm length great, hand size fine. Uh, he looks like he can get upfield. I think the when I did the video, he had pass rush ability. He
Yes.
wasn't he wasn't the roadblock and D tackle, but he was the guy that could get. I think he could get. He had move. He had I don't know intuition. I don't know what he is. He was slippery kind of. I don't
Yeah.
know to get to the quarterback, but he's still a big, strong dude. But as you can see here, his 40 time isn't amazing. But he's a nose tackle.
Yeah.
So tell me about what you saw in him.
Yeah. A little bit, you know, unlike Mozzie Smith, who can really just like stack a double team and
So
hold them
I'm
where they're
definitely
at.
higher on Mozzie Smith. Like there's Mozzie Smith and then Keanu Benton now. Like
hmm Yeah. But he's actually I saw him multiple times knife through double teams and kind of split the double team.
mm,
Like how you said, he is kind of slippery. Even when, especially when the play's away from him, he's able to knife into the backfield and at least redirect it a little bit, or chase it towards the contain. Um, he's a penetrating three technique, for the most part. I think at his best. He can play some shade nose, especially in an odd front that we'll probably see plenty of with Flores. Um, but if you find your true nose later, or you like Tonga there, um, I think he can play 5 technique in an odd front as well, out that far because he has serious pass rush
Well,
chops.
we did it with
Um,
Tomlinson, so
yes, and I think Mozzie Smith might be a 2 down defensive lineman. But Keanu Benton, I don't think needs to ever come off the field. I think he can. I think he can play all 3 downs. I think when you go into the nickel, he can play that 2-eye 3 technique out of the nickel and rush the passer. Out of base, I think he can play 5 tech and you can really stop the run there. He's not the run defender Mozzie Smith is, but I don't think there is one in this draft outside of maybe Jalen Carter, who's better than everyone at everything. But I think his value comes from really not needing to come off the field and being a 3 down defensive lineman who you can move across the front as the situation um, it requires. And he beat the shit out of John Michael Schmitz on a lot of reps, the Gopher center. He had
we'll
really
see at
good
the
tape
scene.
against Iowa's
So
O-line.
East Coast Gridiron was not impressed with Keanu Benton, and he saw him in the Senior Bowl.
At the
You're
Senior
saying,
Bowl, he said, yeah.
yeah,
And I was
but you're
expecting
saying when he played the Gophers in the season, he beat the shit out of Schmidt.
to see worse tape against the better lines than I did. I mean, I thought on a lot of reps he beat the shit out of Schmitz. He had a lot of good reps against the Iowa offensive line who I can't think of anybody coming out this year on the interior of the Iowa O-line, but they've always got some hogs up there. I mean, I was really impressed with him against some of the Big Ten competition. So I mean, I think he's a second tier defensive tackle. Well, I guess you might say Carter's kind of his own tier, but I think he's a very gettable guy on day 2,
He's gettable,
probably second
guys.
round.
He's gettable.
I don't think he
Yeah.
falls. I don't think he falls out of the top 50. At least I don't think he should. But with a trade down, I think he's a guy you could get that is relatively pro ready, fills a need, has good tape in the trenches in the Big Ten, and provides that extra value of being a 3 down defensive lineman compared to a Mozzie Smith who probably comes off the field on passing downs.
So we go from a lumbering. No, he's not lumbering, but he his stats here look like it. But we go from that to a guy runs a 4.26, DJ Turner the second, and I think we lost your video, but height 5'11", weight 178 pounds.
There we go.
Arm length. He's got stubby little arms, but his hand size isn't too bad.
Yes.
40 time, 4.26, 38.5-inch vertical, 10, almost 11 feet on the broad jump. This guy is explosive. 5'11". I just watched a video on him while you were talking because I like to when I was in school, I crashed for tests. I didn't study. I crashed.
Yeah.
I just crashed, watched tape on him. I'll give you after you talk, I'll just give you my quick thoughts out of my abridged version that I purchased at the bookstore to cheat on the test. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it. The best thing about DJ Turner, he is an explosive athlete. There's not really another athlete like him in this defensive back class. When you talk about, I mean, 38.5-inch vertical is pretty wild, but the 4.26 40 is unbelievable. And for a guy who actually has pretty good technique and coverage, usually those really fast guys, like we've got one on the bottom of our roster right now, Kalen Barnes out of Baylor, who I think ran a 4.24 last year. But outside of that, it was, he didn't have great tape. He was just a fast guy, essentially. And Turner, who played on the boundary, almost exclusively at Michigan, has such great speed that it makes up for a lot of deficiencies he might have even in technique. So he's just kind of one of those like ball of clay kind of cornerbacks where he's got all the uncoachable things. So I think he'd be a really interesting athlete to get into the building and play on that boundary and cover the real burners of the league and stick with him. He also has good, like the only reason Trey Waynes was in the league or was a starter for us as long as he was, a lot of it was his recovery speed because he would lose a lot of engagements and then get back to the ball. A lot of the value of his speed came in recovering while the ball was in the air, recovering after he lost a step on a guy. And Turner's even faster. So I just really liked those athletic traits, and sold out for those a little bit on this pick. But I just think that's extremely valuable, and it's an athleticism in a tier that really separates him from a lot of other prospects and a lot of other active corners in the NFL.
So you kind of said it all. I'll just pick out a few points that I thought I agreed completely with. For the little time I spent, I was expecting to see this guy that was just straight line speed. That's all he was. And
Mhm.
what I'm looking at is a guy that he's going to make up for a lot of like maybe mistakes because
Right.
he can close like nothing, and he can close. And even though he is not, like I didn't see him. He's not a bump and run guy. I don't see that happening at all. At
Right.
least in the videos I was watching, he was not playing like that. He's playing off the guy, not too bad, but he can close. He can close really fast, so he can play off a guy. We don't have that. We didn't have that with our corners, right? This guy's runs a 4.26, man. I seen him put his foot in the ground and he was right there. And he's feisty. He's like Duke Shelley feisty, like we liked about Duke Shelley,
Yeah.
but even faster. So I like this kid. Where do you think where does he fall? Where is he looking at going?
So I saw him at I think it was 89 or something on the consensus board. Maybe I didn't write it down. Um, but he's kind of a late riser.
God, I
I'll
want to
pull-
trade down so much to get like 3 or 4 picks in the third round. So bad. Because of
yeah,
the guys that
so
we talking about are like in that area.
exactly. So he's 67 on PFFs on CBS. Like, so he's late day 2, maybe early day 3 kind of guy. It always depends on if there's like a run of a position, and then all of a sudden the guy's like, oh shit, I gotta grab or a GM or a team's like, oh shit, I gotta grab a corner. Corners are starting to go. So maybe he could go a little bit earlier than that. But I think he's probably like an early round 3 type of corner. Maybe a guy we could get at 87 if we don't move out of that pick, however that ends up turning out. But I think there's a lot of value to what he brings to the table. And again, a Big Ten guy. He went up against a lot of pretty good receivers. And yeah, just the way he's able to close a gap is unbelievable to watch at certain times. So shortish arms, shortish guy, not necessarily the Flores body type. But for just the raw athleticism, I think he's a guy they might take a look at, and who might fit pretty well, if he's selected a little bit later.
Now, any moment we're probably going to get our guest on David Woods some point here. So if you guys are still on, we're going to be bringing David Woods on, who came from Skull Purple Podcast. Has left that organization and has come over and wants to do some spot and some co-op stuff with us over here at Minnesota Sports Talk. So stay tuned for that. We could have him on any minute. Problem is he's in
Yes.
California, so that's why we're having a show later than we are today. Can't wait to see what Flores does for the defense. Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
yeah, Mary.
I another thing I fell in love was I fall in love all the time is I was a detractor of Flores, but when I found out where he was the play caller for the Super Bowl and that second year in Miami, he took over the reins. I don't know why he gave him up, but that was the best year Miami had under him, where he took over and made the play calls. So, and he is aggressive. He's just super aggressive. And but where he won me over is when asked him what 3-4 or 4-3, and he says who we playing, and he's going to put people where they can succeed. I think early on in 2022, we were just playing our starters, and we maybe subbed in a couple of guys, but we wasn't until like Miami we finally let Asamoah get like 6 snaps. It's like, come on, where are these guys? Get them in there. Defensive players need to be fresh. So yeah, Flores and everybody's just harping about how good of a leader he is. Passion, aggressive. I don't see him being like that rah-rah type guy. He has got a good head on his shoulders, but I mean, the guy loves football. Passion. He's got
Mhm.
passion for football. This guy's going to be in early, leave late, and make sure these guys are prepared. And if you got a Harrison Smith talking about how great of a leader he is, then that's saying something. Uh, the guy that has too many consonants, because I think if you remove the R, his name would be fine. But no, they had to add an R to it. But Jartavius Martin here,
Mhm.
5'11", weighed 194 pounds, arm length 31 and 8, 9 and 5/8. The vertical 44 inches. This guy can dunk, I don't know, on a 11-foot hoop.
That's a
Uh,
Derrick Rose vertical.
this is sick, man. In 11.111 and the
Mhm.
and the broad jump. So physically, this guy can jump out of the gym. Where is he? How is he as a football player?
Yeah, part of what was quite possibly the best secondary in college football this year, and maybe even the past year. Um, his former teammate Kirby Joseph picked off Aaron Rodgers 3 times in his rookie year. Um, he's obviously got Devin
I've done that.
Witherspoon.
I've done
Yeah,
that.
right.
That doesn't impress
Devin
me.
Witherspoon, who might go as high as like 6 to Detroit as well, was the other corner at Illinois, and he's getting a lot of the hype. But Jartavius Martin was all over the place on the field. Um, he played some safety. He played some slot corner. He played some boundary corner. And he was predominantly in the slot. Um, I just was looking at all his alignment splits, but Illinois was in man about 70% of the time. Um, so his experience is in man coverage, which is going to translate to this Flores defense really seamlessly. Um, and being able to play almost anywhere in the secondary, I think is going to help him find a role early, one way or the other. Sort of similarly to like Daxton Hill last year, out of Michigan, who was, nominally a safety, but he played slot corner. He could function on the boundary. Um, he could play split safety. He could play center field. That's kind of what you get from a Jartavius Martin. Um, yeah, so he was in the slot 493 snaps. So that's where he was predominantly. Um, but played free safety 177 snaps, which is much closer in percentage than like Brian Branch. Brian Branch was almost exclusively in the slot. Um, but he brings you very similar things, and he's a guy you could get later in the draft. Also from a big school, but like I mentioned, they were a man-heavy defensive group, and he was really good. The physicals are really off the charts. Um, he's a very willing tackler. I don't think he's, you know, quite as good of a tackler maybe as Brian Branch, just because there probably isn't one in this draft in the defensive backfield. Um, but I would really like the value of him late. I think he fits exactly what Flores is trying to do, and also would allow Byron Murphy to stick on the boundary, but he could play boundary corner in a pinch. He took almost 100 snaps on the boundary. He could play safety if we're down a guy, if we lose Smith to injury or Seen to injury, he could move back to safety if Smith's done after this year or something like that. I think there's just a lot of value to that kind of Swiss Army knife defensive back, and his day one value might be right away starting in the slot, which I think is a huge need for this defense, just because, yeah, Byron Murphy's good in the slot, but that also puts a lot of pressure on Booth and Evans to succeed on the boundary if you don't get another guy in the mix. So I like Martin a lot. Also goes by Quan Martin at times, if that's any easier for you. Quan Martin.
Okay, I'll go with Quan.
Yeah, less syllables.
I'll call him Mega Quan.
There you go. That's
and he's probably gonna be making the Quan because I do think you're right. He is I think everything you're saying, and this may be a bad comp. I don't know, but I feel like I'm watching Andrew Booth Jr.'s tape when I'm watching his. I kind of feel that way because like you said, willing tackler, but is he as good as Banks, as you said? No, but and then Booth is actually a little faster, and probably not as, he doesn't jump out of the gym, let's say, but Booth had leaping ability and ball skills. I didn't get to watch enough tape to see what kind of ball skills he has, but like one of the first plays is he turned around and like, holy crap, the ball's coming. He reaped up, grabbed it, and it was a great catch. So I think he probably does have that. And obviously the vertical of 44 inches, he could jump with anybody. And he's same height as Andrew Booth Jr. I think 5'11". So I felt like he's at, and I was really high on Andrew Booth Jr. I thought he was a first round in the 20s type of pick. This guy looks like it too. To me, this is a guy that if he goes late, we might get a steal. If he goes if he goes in the second day, this might be a steal for somebody.
Yeah, 3 picks this year, 3 touchdowns.
Why not? If you're gonna pick it, run it back.
Yep. Yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome. I think the value, it's kind of one of those things where you talk value for, what's the value discrepancy with where you're able to get him at the draft and compared to the discrepancy in talent between that guy who's valued really highly. Yeah. What is it? 3-4 a week? Oh, there you go.
This is how D Shizzy does it, man. This is how D Shizzy does it. I'm elite, dude. I'm elite. Thanks, Michael. Yeah. I see Purple Pocket Podcast going live over there with kicking his picture of someone kicking Kirk Cousins to the curb is his thumbnail, and he's making he's mocking the fact that we need to keep Kirk Cousins for 4 more years. I don't think he's serious because his thumbnail is kicking him to the curb. But yeah, his show's rocking. His show's rocking over there right now. I miss all my friends. But yeah, we normally would go at 8 o'clock. That way we don't interfere, that way they don't interfere with our show. Because So normally this show's gonna be at 8 o'clock, but I ran it later at close to 9 because of our guest that should be showing up any moment. I don't know. I wanted to give him a chance to get on. Maybe I might have to do some recorded shows with him. But hey, he's big into the draft too. He's kind of guy that we might bring on Friday next week. We're a open arms type of show or channel here. I don't know. I don't know how many different people I have on my shows. I don't know. I can't even count anymore. But going on to the next guy, Yasser Abdullah. Is this right? This is not right. Is it 237 pounds?
Yep.
Okay. Linebacker, right?
Yep.
Okay. So it is right. I was like, thick dude. All right. So yeah, I don't have anything on him. You got to tell me, man. Oop, that's not what I wanted. Here we go. Sorry. We're going to
He's
Bowling Green next. Notice we're missing a lot of. What was the team that you had on like 4 times?
TCU. TCU,
TCU.
and I
We
almost
kicked the
have.
TCU guy off so you can
I
bring another
did.
guy on. Yeah,
I took him off last minute. I almost had him.
yeah, yeah. We had too many TCU players on the Vikings.
Right.
Sorry, man. Go ahead with
Yeah,
Yasser.
we drafted them all on offense. But yeah, Yasir Abdullah is awesome. He's Sanders-y, where this year at Louisville he actually lined up on the edge a lot. He was he actually had almost a 20% pressure rate this year on a little over 300 pass rush snaps. And he 6'1", so he's kind of low to the ground, but he has great bend. Does a really good job ducking the jabs of the offensive tackles. So on his production on the quarterback, a lot of those are sort of ducking and diving. And he actually didn't align off the ball too often. A lot of times lined up at edge. But I think with that 4.47 speed, and you see it on tape at times, he had an interception on a receiver up the boundary on what was basically a go ball off of motion, where he followed him to the flat. Guy turned it up the field, and he tracked it the whole way and got a pick like right on the goal line. So he has really serious coverage chops as well. But I think in a similar vein to Sanders, you can play him off ball. You can line him up in a 2-point stance on the edge. You can rush him through the B gap. I think he'd be an excellent blitzer in Flores's scheme. And really has good instincts as a coverage defender. So whether that's dropping into the flat or dropping into the hook, like he can really do it all out of the box. I think in the same vein as a guy like Sanders. So I think his versatility in that regard would be a really attractive trait when Flores is looking through this class.
Yeah, I mean, but tell me where. I mean, I saw some video on him. He kind of reminded me of the kid from Iowa a little bit. Size wise, even he seems maybe a little more explosive, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it looked like a sure tackler. All the traits are there. I'm still gonna always want Sanders. But where's this guy in the draft? Where do you think he's falling?
So he's actually 138 on the big old
Okay,
consensus board. So this is a guy who would be a really sneaky pick. Might be a
sneaky.
day three guy. Might be a day three guy. But I think he brings a lot to the table. And would be a solid player day one. Like I think from a day one standpoint, I think he'll be ahead of where Brian Asamoah was last year. Asamoah might be a better player for 2023. But I think what he'll bring to the table on day one as a rookie is more translatable maybe than Brian Asamoah. And I think the juice he has rushing off the edge will be another valuable thing, like I mentioned, especially if there's a plan to move from Za'Darius. If there's, some injuries we see to our current edge duo that they're prone to. So I think late rounds, maybe as high as a third round pick, but likely a fourth, fifth rounder. I think there's great value here in Yasir Abdullah.
Now, the last guy, and it doesn't look like we might have to ask him to come on another time. David Woods, I was hoping we could get him on, but maybe it's something I got to maybe put him on a weekend, create a weekend show. What the hell? Why not? I need more shows. But
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got Carl Brooks here, and I'm watching film on him, and I see what you see in him. I'm watching Senior Bowl tape, practice tape,
Yeah.
as you were talking, and he can't. This is a solid dude, man. I don't have any 40 times bench press, nothing on this guy other than his size, but he
Hmm.
looks like a tank. And I don't think he is what Mozzie, what was the first guy? Mozzie
Mozzie
Smith.
Smith.
Mozzie Smith. He doesn't look as explosive as Mozzie Smith, but he doesn't look movable. He looks like a
No.
strong dude.
Right. And I think what's really exciting about him from a skill set standpoint is his pass rush ability. Like a refined pass rusher with a serious pass rush plan, a bevy of moves, and at 6'3", 6'4", 300 plus pounds, he lined up at edge over 50% of the time, straight up edge, over the outside of the tackle's outside shoulder, um, and won consistently 10 sacks, 18 tackles for loss this past season. Had some pretty good reps at the Senior Bowl that I saw as well. Um, and I think, yeah, like shades of a Javon Hargrave type guy, um, who can probably rush from the interior on passing downs, could play that 5 technique in an odd front out of base early, and cause some problems there. But he's a guy who can get some push from the interior. He's got a lot of moves, and you can also, I mean, you can kick him outside as well. Like that might not be as playable at the NFL level, but this is a guy who has experience all across the defensive front. Not really a nose tackle, very rarely shading the center, um, but a good penetrating 3 technique, can kick out to 5 technique. Um, even played some 7 on certain snaps in college, but I like Carl Brooks a lot. I think he's another late riser on some boards. Like I think PFF actually. I'm gonna look. If I remember right. Yeah, so they had PFF had Carl Brooks with the number 1 PFF grade out of 862 edge players for 2022 with a 93.0. So they've actually got him up to 80 on their big consensus
It's
board,
like,
but
is it a
he
competition thing? I don't know. Who did they play?
yeah, I think that's certainly part of it, and I think that's certainly part of the reason he was able to function at the true edge position. Um, just because I think far and away he's the best player on the defensive front. So
He
they're gonna
doesn't look like a nose tackle. He looks like a
right,
3 technique, right? Is that what you'd
exactly,
say? And
exactly.
but could he play 3-4 D end? Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Tonga, he kind of looks like maybe he'd be like a Tonga,
Mhm.
in a pinch we can put him there. But yeah, I mean, I feel like if he was sitting around late, it's a guy that you'd want to take a chance on.
Well, yeah, just serious pass rush tools. Like for a guy his size, it's just like maybe a low ceiling guy. But I think the floor is pretty high because he's got really good pass rush tools, great production rushing the passer, and
I think teams screwed up not recruiting this guy, that he had to go to Bowling Green. I mean,
yeah, it might have some value late. I want to look into the story of him. Maybe he had other offers or something like that, and chose them.
and he
But
just really liked Bowling Green,
right,
maybe.
bowling
I've
orange.
been to that
It looks
campus.
like.
I think is it in Kentucky,
I think
or is
it's.
it North Tennessee, or
I thought it was.
Bowling Green, Kentucky? Yeah, right.
Is
Isn't it?
Ohio? Oh, it's a city in Ohio. Yeah, no, it is Kentucky. For some
Yeah,
reason, I thought it was
right. So yeah, we
Tennessee.
used to work for Daktronics to build scoreboards, and I had to go to their campus once, and I'm like, and at that time they actually had a pretty good team. But yeah, I don't. Guy like this would be, would be intriguing. Like it's not kind of. I'm like not, Drew Sanders in love with him,
Yeah,
or
more of a flyer tier guy.
or my other guy. Who's my other guy? Cornerback,
Banks, you
Maryland.
like? I think.
Yeah, who's
Yeah,
my other guy? Yeah, Deontay Banks, who's not
yeah,
6'4", who is not
yeah,
6'4", and
yeah. Banks is awesome.
238 pounds, and
Banks
runs
is
a
badass.
4.35. Yeah, he's out of all these guys. I'll put it back up here. Let's put it back up here. Let me back it up. So just to recap, Brian Branch, we liked his play the slot, tackling ability. Good football player, right?
Yeah, yeah, good ball player for sure.
And Mozzie Smith, he looks like a guy that we can be a difference maker on defense. Honestly,
He's a dog for
yeah.
sure.
This might be our fix at nose tackle. This might be what we needed.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Joey Porter is just an athlete, just not refined.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy is, I think, right? And he's an athlete
Yep.
too. I mean, he's
Yep.
42-inch vert. What the fuck? 11.4? That's got to
Mm-hmm.
that almost be a record. 11.4. That's like close to, I think I like 11.8 or something is like the record. 11.7.
It's it's crazy. You'd think he was 6'4", jumping like that in the broad.
Well, yeah, 6'4", 235. That's it's small
Yeah.
forward, right?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
He is these are his real numbers. Below the 235 is his real numbers. But yeah, he looks great,
6 foot,
man. That's
6 foot, about 200, but he's a press animal. That Deontay Banks. That's the one thing to really take away if that's all you retain is he's very, very good in press man coverage.
Yeah, I think
And in
of all
press
players
target.
so far, Mozzie Smith and Drew Sanders probably fill the biggest needs. Because I mean, a rookie corner. I think Mozzie Smith and Sanders could start, right?
The corner class is very deep too. So you don't necessarily need
I
to
mean,
go
they
corner.
have more competition, I think, on our defense right now because we signed Murphy and
Yep.
Evans has played well. Um,
Jowan Johnson.
yeah.
Or
Oh, and
yeah.
yeah, great. Yeah, look at that guy. I mean, big corner,
Jowan
right?
Jowan Williams, not Jowan Johnson. Jowan
Whatever his
Williams.
name is.
He's a big
The
ass guy.
second
Yeah.
round pick, right? And we picked him up for free.
Yes. Pick 49,
Um,
I think, 1 year.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's playing for free this year. Jack Campbell, it's like duping on Jordan Hicks, right? That's the way we kind of felt about him.
Yeah, a little
Uh,
bigger, but similar role I think he'd play.
yeah, he's taller, obviously. Jordan Hicks is not even 6 foot. He's like 6 foot, I think.
Yeah.
Will McDonald, he's a he's a freaky athlete, and he's got all the qualities and pass rush ability, and would do it great from outside linebacker position, even though he played DN.
Yeah, that's the one
And
true edge kinda on this list, I'd say.
yeah, yeah, and Keanu Benton. That I'm not in love with him anymore. I was in like with him. Now I'm like, he'd be okay. And in a pinch, if he fell to the fourth round, I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty good. I don't necessarily want him in the third round. I don't just I don't know. I'm not enthralled with him because he's not that athletic, and just from the what I heard about the Senior Bowl,
Yeah.
DJ
I'm a little
Turner.
higher on him, but yeah. Yeah,
I
he's
was third
I think I
round.
prefer
That I was
Mozzie.
thinking third round. That's a steal earlier. But now that I've seen Mavi Smith, no one will suffice for me now.
Yeah, that's right.
DJ Turner the second. This is a guy that's he could play. He's gonna be a starting corner in this league, no doubt.
This is a guy who would have been freaking awesome in that Donatel scheme, actually. Like, if we ever run any quarters where he's off the ball
Recovery
to start the
speed.
snap, oh my god, can he break on like a quick out or a curl route? Man, can he close the gap. When the ball gets in the air, he can be there to make the break on it when he started like 5 yards away. I mean, he's awesome, just maybe not quite as perfect of a fit, schematically.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jatavius Martin, 44-inch vertical. 4.46.
Yeah, all these guys are athletes except for a couple of them.
Yeah,
Well, everybody's a better athlete than us, but
right.
yeah, but he's good. He's a solid player.
Yep, a lot of
And
man
then
coverage.
Yasser
Black
Abdullah,
guy.
another solid linebacker. It wouldn't be bad if we drafted this guy.
Nope.
Nothing's going to suffice over Drew Sanders. I'm sorry. I will not like you guys. I'll be pissed that we didn't get Drew Sanders. And Carl Brooks, he is you know, just big muscle. You're going to stick there in that D line wherever you want to put him. Pretty much, I think he could play a lot of in a pinch in any position on the D line.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he wouldn't be a. He would. He's not going to be. No one's going to ever say he's a steal, but yeah, I think he's going to play a long time in this league.
Yeah, depending
Football.
on where you get him, who knows. But yeah, I like what he brings to the table. I think he's that pressure from the interior that we've been needing for sure.
He seemed quick. I mean, he seemed like he
Yeah.
could shed. He could get rid of his center pretty quick. I seen in the
Oh yeah.
Senior Bowl practices, he was like throwing guys around. So I'm not, he just, I'm just thinking Bowling Green, but I don't know. I, I, I think I see what you see in him. I see what you see in him. Well,
Yeah.
hey guys, that is what we got for you today. This we didn't get our special guest on. He probably had California traffic. I think he's in San Bernardino. I think he's in the same area as
Alexander Madison.
yeah, Alexander Madison. So hopefully we'll see this guy pretty soon on my channel. And he's started his own YouTube his podcast. When I get him on, I'll announce it. We'll announce it. But hey, that's it for today, guys. Skull Vikings. We'll see you next week, or maybe sooner. I'm gonna talk to Johnny to see if we can pop another show on next week. But let's go. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.